Good morning, dear friends. Happy Friday morning. I wanted to take a minute and send this pastoral note out to you all to reflect more deeply on the solidarity and the presence that I believe we're all called to during these very difficult times. I'm aware that tomorrow night the Newtown Florist Club will be sponsoring a candlelight vigil at 7:30. And I've been in touch with some of them to share my ongoing support and my love and my deep appreciation for the conversation that they're all inviting us into as a community. We really must step into some uncomfortable spaces for those of us in positions of privilege. We must listen deeply to those around us who have been suffering and who are wondering when the enormous pressure that they have felt for so long will end. I find myself in a difficult situation and wanted to be very honest with you and send this note out this morning. The reason I'm sending this out is, to be blunt, I don't want to let any of you off the hook from the deep work that I believe we're all called to do as followers of Jesus. I am also very aware that we find ourselves still in the middle of a pandemic with cases on the rise in many places in the country. And I'm also aware that the bishop and I are not able to allow us even to gather for small groups in the nave for worship on Sunday mornings. And I'm also aware that if many from Grace, saw me standing in a public space, even if I could rationalize that I was spaced out and was wearing a mask, they would be quite angry at what they saw as a lack of consistency in pastoral direction. I'm also aware that many will be very disappointed if I don't show up and if Cynthia doesn't show up to the vigil and be physically present there. So we find ourselves in a very difficult situation trying to navigate, to put it this way, how our hearts can be fully present while our bodies may not be able to be physically present. I've sat this morning in silence and last night as well, talking with parish leaders, and especially this morning, sitting and talking with Cynthia about how we can be present and use ourselves, the role that we have, the particular role that I have as the rector of Grace, in a way that fosters and nurtures this deeper conversation and action that must take place in our community and in our world. I can't afford to be a distraction to anybody. My presence there, if it would be a way to give someone a door or a place to put their attention versus putting it where it needs to go, I can't afford that. I also can't afford to do nothing as a follower of Jesus. I remember the day when my sister called me and told me when my niece came home from school for the first time and someone had made fun of her because they pointed out that the color of her skin was darker than theirs. My family has wondered and wrestled with this, as so many have in much, much more pressured ways than ours has. So we wonder how we can be present and what does solidarity look like? What does compassion look like at this moment in these particular circumstances? So I wanted to offer this to you. Cynthia and I will be present in the nave at 7 p.m. on Saturday, and we will Facebook Live evening prayer, a service of prayer. At 7:30, at the scheduled beginning of the vigil, right off the square, we will peal Grace's bells as a sign and a symbol of compassion and love that ring out for all to hear. Our Facebook Live will not conflict with anyone else's, and we encourage you to find Andrew Cheek and other community leaders who are live streaming and have done a superb job of making sure that we see what we need to see and hear what we need to hear. Cynthia and I will gather us for prayer at 7, and I encourage you, for those who cannot be physically present, to spend that time in deep prayer in your homes, to light a candle and to remember, as Father Thomas Keating always told us, and I've said many times to you, the chief thing that separates us from God is the thought that we are separate from God. And as I add, the chief thing that separates us from each other is the thought that we are separate from each other. So I call us to prayer this weekend, as every weekend, but especially perhaps now in these days. I know my absence from the candlelight vigil will be a disappointment to some at Grace. I also know that my presence there would be a cause of anger to many at Grace. So we hold the space that we can hold in a way that feels most authentic. It also takes away any excuses that we have, any opportunities to avoid the conversations and the action that we need to take. So I send my prayers to you all and to your families. And I ask you intentionally tomorrow to gather yourselves in prayer and to light a candle and to remember that we are all connected and we're all held in God's embrace. And it's time that we act that way. Take care, and we'll see you soon.